Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Joe Laban with SolarWinds. I wanted to welcome everybody and thank everybody for joining the call this morning to talk about SolarWinds Virtualization Manager. I wanted to do a couple of housekeeping items or talk about a couple of housekeeping items today. I want to make sure everyone stays on mute till the end of the call. During the call, this GoToMeeting webinar, the chat feature is turned on, so you'll be able to submit questions throughout the call. We'll also have a live Q&A at the end of the demo, so you'll be able to answer as many questions as you like then. And we'll also be giving away a $100 gift card in a drawing to those that are participating. So I had a few items that I wanted to cover this morning before we kind of get into the virtualization demo. These are the topics I'll be discussing. I'm Joe Laban again. We'll also be hearing from Jared Hensel today. He's one of our senior V-Man product marketing managers. And Matt Quick is one of our senior engineers. He'll be diving into a quick demo of the product. So these are the topics I'd like to cover with you today. If you take anything away from the call today, I'd like you to understand how to engage SolarWinds as a partner. We have an inbox set up to field any inbound requests. So reseller@solarwinds.com. Please write that down, reseller@solarwinds.com. And that's anything, any questions, any type of engagement at all, please reach out. We've got probably a dozen people monitoring that box at all times. Who is SolarWinds? So you've probably heard of SolarWinds. The thing I want you to remember today is that your customers, any customer at all, any size, any vertical, they have IT resources that need monitoring, and I'd like you to think of SolarWinds as a de facto recommendation for those customers. So any IT resource anywhere in the network, whether it be physical or virtual, that's a SolarWinds project. So the tenet of SolarWinds is IT management software that's powerful, easy to use, and affordable. A little bit of our company background. Again, you guys, this is just mostly to show you that we definitely have brand recognition. Most of your clients will be SolarWinds, probably in some way, shape, or form. They own a product. You see a couple of our bigger customers on the right-hand side there. So the important thing, for you guys is what's the value of SolarWinds, right? Your customers are going to be a lot of your customers are going to be SolarWinds customers. So again, the brand recognition is already there. You're not going to be recommending something that they haven't heard of before. The important piece for your customer, the value to them is it's a single source for all monitoring and management, right? Everything in one user interface. And again, we approach any size vertical in any environment. The product is simple and straightforward, easy to use, easy to maintain, and where the value for you recommending that is that your customers tend to stay SolarWinds customers, so there's easy cross-sell opportunities. We can also add to existing opportunities for your customers if they are going to be doing hardware refreshes, infrastructure, data center refreshes. SolarWinds can definitely be part of that conversation. We have a large customer base, so like I said, it's probably going to be an awareness campaign on your part to your customer, just finding out who is a SolarWinds customer. The great thing about the product, because of the brand recognition, is if you're into an acquisition, if there's an account where you need to do some acquisition plays into it, SolarWinds is a great way to do that. So the last thing on this slide talks about sales pillars. There's three sales pillars at SolarWinds, right? We have the regional sales team, and they're the traditional sales, direct sales here at SolarWinds, how the company got started. Those are for customers that are just hitting the SolarWinds website, interested in a product or need, have a solution or need for a solution, and they're downloading directly from our website. We also have a team called the install base, and they're working with those clients that have been long-standing SolarWinds customers, just trying to help them continue to deploy SolarWinds into their environment. And then that's where we come in, and you come in is the channel team. So these are the partner-driven, partner-recommended net new opportunities. And as you can see, the customers can purchase any way they like, but when you bring us as a channel partner a net new opportunity, that's really where you can have a nice return on your investment there. So what we offer is a complete solution front to back from the application layer all the way to the storage back end. So SolarWinds is a complete one-stop shop for all IT resource monitoring. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but just know that we cover everything from security to storage to applications, pretty much anything and everything. Again, any IT resource, we provide monitoring for it. So one of the things I like to always cover is sort of how to sniff out or listen for when it's an opportunity to recommend SolarWinds. And these are some of the things that you're going to be hearing. Network management, needs for server and application monitoring or virtual monitoring. You can ask questions when you're providing quotes for switches or routers or servers or any kind of software. You can always ask, how are you approaching the monitoring for that particular resource? And that a lot of times will lead you to a SolarWinds opportunity, at which point you'll want to reach out to the reseller at SolarWinds.com to let us know that you're working with a client. So there's a couple of questions at the bottom, and I'll spare everyone reading those, but you can quickly glance at those and kind of understand how you might probe for opportunities with your clients, recommend solutions to them. So I'm going to introduce, that's what I had this morning for you. I want to introduce Jared Hensel. He's going to take you through today's agenda, and then we'll go from there.
Basically, here's the agenda, why we want to monitor virtual systems, who to sell vMan to, key questions to ask customers, why you want to sell Virtualization Manager, key features of Virtualization Manager, and then ultimately using Virtualization Manager SolarWinds products to unlock the potential of your virtual environment. Why you want to sell Virtualization Manager or a system to monitor virtual systems. Gartner pegged it at about, I want to say it's over 80% now of workloads are now virtualized. We're no longer in that day where people are buying a single server to run one operating system and one application. They're buying servers to put into their virtual resource pools or clusters. And the teams that are doing this, 451 Research did a survey, and basically the infrastructure teams that are doing these virtual environments, they asked them what they're being judged on, and 51% they said part of their job requirement was uptime. That they were using that to evaluate their performance. And then 50% were being measured as availability, that not only is the application and the server up, but is it actually responding in a adequate manner, and they're meeting SLAs. VMware did a little survey and came out with, we sell these great systems, and if they're not monitored and maintained correctly, people are losing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in their infrastructure by lost software licenses, provisioning hardware, not decommissioning machines. So basically, the ROI is getting lost by not maintaining the system. And then another question we get asked a bunch is the public versus private cloud. IDC basically put the 5-year growth rate at approximately the same for both public and private cloud growth versus just on-prem stuff. And basically, long story short, local on-prem stuff is not going away. Yes, the cloud is growing, and it's growing fast, but there's so much legacy stuff, there's so much new stuff going on-prem that there's tons of opportunity there. Plus the cloud, there's opportunity for actually selling directly to like managed service providers or data centers themselves that would be hosting quote-unquote public cloud. They're not necessarily the Amazon or Microsoft. Who is a Virtualization Manager customer? Anybody that's getting VMware, vSphere, or Microsoft Hyper-V licensing, we would work great with attaching with those deals because they do need something to monitor all the virtual machines and hardware that they're purchasing and spinning up. Customers that are using custom solutions, spreadsheets to monitor their environment. We talk to tons of people that we ask what you're using. Oh, I'm just using the vCenter, or I'm using Hyper-V, I'm not really using a third-party tool. I have a spreadsheet, or I've got some CMS system, or something not adequately in place for to handle a virtual environment and all the changes that can be made there. as Joe said earlier, we integrate with all the products, and anybody that's got server and application monitor, a great question to ask is, how's that running? Is that a virtual system? If they say yes, now you already know that they've got some virtual stuff in the background. We integrate great with SAM and all the other SolarWinds products, and it's great to see the application traverse through the virtual layer and its metrics. And anybody that's up for VMware VROPS renewal. We've seen tons of customers that kind of quote unquote get it for free when they get VMware the first time around vSphere, but when they get that renewal bill, they're a little bit shocked by what they see or what they're actually getting. So that is an opportunity that when they're up for renewal to look at SolarWinds and our cost savings. And Virtualization Manager completely scales from small to medium business to enterprises. I mean, we cover everybody that you can imagine. We're not just a particular vertical or a particular industry size. Some of the job titles, obviously, if you're looking at enterprise people, they're going to be more specific, virtualization admins or virtual VMware admins, directors of IT, system architects, those type of titles. And then the small and medium business, definitely we're talking more to the IT manager, system tech, IT admin. They're just a smaller shop, so they're kind of a jack of all trades. Key questions to ask, when you're having these conversations is, do you need complete visibility into your virtual environment to troubleshoot faster? How are you troubleshooting? How are you looking at the thousands of metrics that are being provided by VMware or Hyper-V? Which ones are you looking at? When you're troubleshooting virtual applications, are you just, is a needle in a haystack? How are you looking at those critical alerts, or how do you know what is critical? Do you have a system that literally is bubbling stuff up to the top, bright red, Danger Will Robinson type stuff that literally is telling you, look over here, this is where the problem's at? Do you suspect most of your VMs are not correctly sized and you've got inadequate or over-provisioned resources? I know a bunch of users that do physical to virtual migrations or even spinning up new machines. They'll talk to a SQL guy, and the SQL guy needs 64 gigs of RAM, 32 cores, all this and all that. And then at the end of the day, the box is using a tenth of it, and you just allocated resources for a server that's doing hardly nothing. When you do find the root cause of a problem and do find, hey, this I/O counter's high or this CPU's bad, how long does it take you to fix it? Do you have to log into another system? Are you using multiple systems? What kind of credentials? How long does it take to actually go, okay, here's the problem, now let me start fixing? And then what kind of systems, do they have a system in place that's kind of being proactive, alerting something at that 60% threshold, not that 95% threshold when end users are screaming and complaining about performance? Or how do they know what to monitor? Why Virtualization Manager is better than the rest is it does give you that complete visibility into VMware and VMware vSphere and Microsoft Hyper-V. We do support both hypervisors, and we do aggregate multiple locations into a single dashboard. We're easy to deploy. It's a virtual appliance that can be deployed in under an hour. And all the alerts are pre-configured out of the box. We take the thousands of counters and metrics and basically boil them down to, okay, here are the 50 you want to see, and they're configured at this level. Obviously, you can go in there and customize those even more, but we definitely give you a good starting point. We don't give you a blank slate and just go here, figure it out for yourself. We allow you to isolate the virtual issues and give you recommendations and remediation actions to fix those. We're going to go, hey, here is that problem. You need to move this, or you need to add this, or you need to delete that. So it's right there in the tool to fix that. You're not having to go into your hypervisor or into another system to make these changes. You can make those changes right then and there. One of my favorite parts of Virtualization Manager is our sprawl dashboard, where we really show you how to reclaim virtual resources and optimize existing workloads. We'll trend the environment and go, hey, look at these machines are using 20% CPU for the last week, and we haven't spiked above 40%. You can decrease your CPU in half, or you can decrease your memory in half. Or this guy's at 100% or 90% for the last week. You should give it more. Or here's your orphan VMDKs that you did a delete from inventory and not a delete from disk, so you're just wasting storage space and not realizing it. And then the licensing on Virtualization Manager is straightforward. It's a socket-based count, very much like VMware would be. So typically I talk to clients and You know, hey, how many hosts do you have? Multiply by 2, which is typically a pretty accurate count. So it's easy to figure out. But you know, you put all these things together, and we really do allow you to maintain a high performance of business applications. That's what we're trying to drive. I mean, you know, somebody's going to complain about Exchange or SharePoint. They really don't care about the back end behind it. This is just part of that equation to get everything up and running and optimized. Some of the key features, like I pointed out in earlier slides, we have a summary dashboard where we take Hyper-V and VMware vSphere and dump them into a single UI, so you're not having to look at 2 different places, where you're looking at multiple vCenters that are consolidated. And the alerts that we're showing, they are hypervisor specific. You know, so we'll have high host, CPU, and memory, and all those things, but we'll actually go, hey, this CPU counter plus this wait time counter equals that, and actually show you in context what the alert is. So it's not just a generic alert. You know, they are hypervisor specific. We'll also provide potential issues and warnings. Basically, things that your the end user would never complain about, but like, hey, you need to update the tools or delete snapshots, things that basically allow you to be really proactive in maintaining an environment. And for those alerts, we have the recommendation that's saying, hey, you really should look at moving these things around or increasing that or making this tweak. We do kind of start pointing you down that right path and giving you, you know, a good tip on remediating the problem. We also have a capacity planning tool. You know, you guys sell this stuff into your customer, and you know, at some point they've got to scope out how much more they're going to need at some point. Hey, I'm growing this many virtual machines or this much storage. So the capacity planning tool allows them to plan those what-if scenarios. If I add a host or remove a host or add 10 virtual machines, that they can figure out what hardware or software they're going to need in the coming years for to you guys, you know, that you guys can sell into them. We do integrate with all the SolarWinds products, in particular the quote-unquote system products, which would be the server and application monitor, our storage resource monitor, and our web performance monitor. We basically take all those products in conjunction with Virtualization Manager and create an app stack dashboard. It's a really easy to use red, green, yellow type interface that traverses the whole synthetic transactions and applications through virtual and then all the way to storage, so it really does decrease the mean time to resolve. And then we have those remediation actions in our tool that we allow you to change CPU and memory, power management, power on, power off, suspend, take and delete snapshots, as well as host and storage migration. You know, we will let you vMotion or live migrate to different hosts or different storage devices and show you their metrics so you know you're making the right move from one host to another to give the virtual machine the optimal performance. You know, all these great features, what does it actually mean in the real world is we've done a couple surveys, and one, we actually asked users, what was your downtime before Virtualization Manager and what was your downtime after? And I was really surprised that we were decreasing downtime by 53%, you know, with those proactive alerts and the warnings that they were able to get out in front of issues. And then we asked the same question as far as, you know, okay, something did crash or something was stopped or the performance was bad, you know, how quickly were you able to resolve it? And again, we were able to decrease that by 59% by basically having that, you know, here's a red blinking light, go fix me type stuff. And then we asked a question about our sprawl dashboard on, hey, how much resources were you able to reclaim in that environment? And we averaged 25% for CPU, memory, and storage reclamation, which is huge if you think of some of these large environments of how many resources that they've got tied up for dev test or QA or some department that doesn't even exist anymore. They've just got these resources wasting away. So Virtualization Manager really was able to make a positive impact on the environment by allowing it to be reclaimed. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Quick now and then basically let him show you guys a demo of Virtualization Manager and how all the features work together.
All right. Thank you very much, Jared. So real quick, I'll go ahead and move my demo site over here. Fantastic. So again, my name is Matt Quick. I'm one of the engineers here at SolarWinds. And what we're going to take a look at is going to be the product itself. So, and what we're looking at here, for those of you who are actually familiar with the Orion Suite, as we mentioned before, Virtualization Manager actually comes as a separate virtual appliance. So as far as the overall installation setup goes, Your customer, they'll just deploy the appliance on their current environment. Then after that, they'll give it a static IP address, and then we run you through a wizard to set up the rest of the configuration, which is really just going to be what's the username and password to vCenter or to your Hyper-V environment, and what's the IP address. That's pretty much it. So once it's done, we'll go out and start collecting information, be able to pull all that here, which is actually what we're looking at right now. So I'm actually going to start with the appliance itself and its dashboard, and I'll show you here in a little bit exactly what we get on the Orion side. So what we're going to start out here with, this is actually what we call our dashboards pages for Virtualization Manager. In particular, we're looking at the administrative dashboard, which shows the user some high-level information about their VMware environment, including all the alerts that are currently going off. Now, with these alerts, these are out of the box, pre-configured for the user. So we can actually click, drill down into these. We can actually see, of course, name of the alert, definition of the alert, as well as a recommendation that goes along with it for any of the, in this case, data stores that are firing off this alert, and be able to see exactly which data stores are causing it and why they're causing it, as well as the history of this particular alert as well. Then next to that, we'll actually have a map of the environment, showing us all the VMs, hosts, data stores, clusters within this environment, as well as what the current alert is going off on these VMs in this case. So I can actually highlight over this, be able to see what the warning is, what the information is, and so forth. Now from here or anywhere else on the product, I can actually click and drill down and be able to get more details about that particular virtual machine. So I can actually see its current performance. I can get a quick map of the environment, so I can see what cluster, data store, host that it belongs to, asset information, as well as the rest of the information about this particular VM. Now there is a full-on mapping page on here as well, so I can actually go to Explore and Map. And what this will do is actually show me contextualized views to show me exactly the relationships of this, in this case, particular virtual machine. But it also adds one other feature here on the left, which is this time travel capability. So if I actually wanted to go back several days and see where did this VM vMotion or what alerts were going off 3-4 days ago, I can actually be able to do that from here. All right. Now the rest of this is going to be, rest of this dashboard is going to be kind of a heads-up view for the rest of the environment. So you can see your clusters with top CPU and memory, VMs with high CPU ready time or memory ballooning values. And the fact this is blank is actually going to be a good thing. So, because we're looking for all VMs with the memory ballooning over 5%, not finding thing is actually really good here. But not only do we go out and get the basic metrics for your VM environment, CPU, memory, network, disk, we're also going to go out and get you those more specific metrics, such as CPU ready wait times, memory ballooning, data store latency, and IOPS, and so forth. But the other really good part about this one is going to be the fact that not only can we get these deep dive metrics, but also the fact we can do really good training and analysis as well. And one of the dashboards pretty evident of that, as Jared mentioned earlier, is going to be with capacity planning. So with this, we can actually see details such as how many more days do I have remaining before I run out of resources, how many small, medium, and large VMs I can put in place, as well as what is the depletion rates for each one of my clusters for CPU, for memory, and for storage. Now this dashboard's kind of giving me the average of averages view, so I can kind of get the heads up of, okay, what's going on with the environment, you know, what is it going to be like in the next 30 days based off 30-day history and so forth. But there is going to be a full-on capacity planning tool within the product as well that allows you to go through and create your own scenarios. So first things first, the resource container. I can actually specify what I'm testing against. So I could say my 5 clusters, and based off that, we get 5 results down here at the bottom of the page. Then the usage profile is actually going to be what is considered my average VM in my environment, which right now just actually has that one VM that I selected earlier. So I could say just take my entire environment, recalculate that, and again, that'll show me how many small, average, and large VMs I can put out there. Now, average is going to be exactly that, show me the average of these 5 clusters and all the VMs within it. Small is going to take the smallest VM within those 5 clusters, show me how many more of those I can put out there. Large, same thing, take the largest VM, show me how many more of those I can put out there. And the value here in parentheses, this is actually going to be the constraint. So I can see, like on this Hyper-V cluster I've got highlighted, disk is going to be my big constraint. But this one up here, memory, and this one a combination of both disk and memory. But where it really gets interesting is here on the left-hand side. So for one, I can set my sizing target between peak and 95th and 75th percentile. That way I get that best case, worst case type scenario. Also, I don't set any host for failover. So if you have a host in your cluster that's dedicated for failover purposes, you can certainly define that here. Of course, it's going to lower your numbers over here, but it gives you a more accurate representation as to how many more VMs you can put out there. Or if you plan on adding any additional ESX hosts, you can actually define how many you're going to add over here, as well as what the specs are going to be, and let you know how many of your VMs you can put out there, or the customer's VMs you can put out there once those are put out in place. All right. We also have the ability under resource types to actually change some of the overall values as far as what our limits are. And this is actually what I like to call the budgeting page. So with right now we set pretty much 90 and 100% for warning an outage for each one of our metrics. But instead of saying 90 and 100, I could actually say 70 and 80 instead. That way I've got a 20% buffer room before I truly run out. That way the customers have plenty of time to plan, purchase, and implement new hardware before they truly run out. They can also exclude metrics out of the analysis as well. So one of the nice parts about this is one of my big constraints, especially on these Hyper-V clusters here. Well, okay, it's end of year, it's budgeting time. All right, I'm going to allocate another LUN for a data store or add a new tray of disks. Well, what's my next constraint? This way, the customer is not going to be blindsided whenever they say, oh, I can put in 10 more VMs, and they correct that and then find out, oh, well, I could only put one more in place and I run out of memory. This will let them know what's the next constraint going to be and how many more VMs they could put out there. All right. Workload. So this will actually let us know, if I want to put a certain number of VMs out there, how many more can I put in place? So I can set the settings here and let me know whether or not they'll fit. And finally, my favorite part here, the sample period. So by default, we'll take the last 5 days of the tool. But from here, I can actually set this to however many days I've got averages for. So if I've got 30, 90, or even 100 days worth of data, I can actually throw that in here and use that average. But more importantly, I can also say what time of day we can take the averages out of as well. So especially for those who have like a lot of virtual desktops, so they're very much Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, I can set that time range here. That way the overnight hours where maybe they're doing snapshots, maybe I've heard virus scans, maybe they're doing absolutely nothing at all, that doesn't skew the results. Now the other cool part too, not only can we show you how many small, medium, and large VMs we can put out there, we can also show you the overall capacity of the environment. So show you how much raw capacity you have, what the current usage looks like, and based off that, what's the remaining capacity for each one of your metrics. And we can also get that in a consumption chart as well. So you can see, based off, in this case, 5 days, what my average growth rate looks like. And you can see for the most part I'm on a downward trend here, so I can see that right now my warning and outage dates are not available since I'm on that downward trend. Let's see if we can take this back 30 days instead. Update, recalculate. Maybe that'll actually show an upward trend that shows me my warning and outage dates. Not so much. Still on a downward trend overall. We've actually been downsizing our environments here, which has actually been pretty nice. All right. Now, also on trending and analysis, one of the other big dashboards we have too is going to be with VM sprawl. Now, I can do VM sprawl over here, but what I want to go ahead and do right now is I want to flip over to the Orion dashboard, because what we can see here, I'm going to zoom out here, is we can reintegrate Virtualization Manager back to the Orion dashboard. It'll actually add this virtualization tab here at the top of the page. And with that will actually come several links down here at the bottom for looking at VMs. But while we're on the subject of trends, as Jared was mentioning earlier, there's also going to be this sprawl page where we can take a look and see what VMs are potentially wasting space within our VMware or Hyper-V environments. And we'll break it down by your top VMs, by under or over allocated CPU or memory. One of the other things that Jared mentioned too is that we can also take action on the VMs from here as well. And we'll actually go ahead and embed those actions right here where, okay, we recommend that we increase from 2 to 4. Go ahead and make that change right here. Go ahead and make that 4. Save that, and that'll push out that configuration change. Same thing for memory as well. Then we'll also take a look at VMs that have been idle for the last week. We can actually power them down from here because at this point they're just powered on, not doing anything. We'll also take a look at VMs that are powered off for 30 days or more. So now at that point they're just wasting storage space. And speaking of storage, we'll also take a look at your top 10 VMs by snapshot disk usage. Be able to delete those snapshots from here, as well as be able to take a look at orphan VMDK files and delete those from here as well. Now the really cool part about this being integrated back into the Orion suite, if I go back to my virtualization summary page, it'll actually show me a list of my entire virtual environment, both VMware and Hyper-V, broken down by, in this case, vCenter to data center to cluster to host. And I can drill down into my VMs from here. Now the cool part about this, as I drill down, you'll notice this looks pretty seamless to what we have with some of our other products for those of you who are familiar with it. And at least for this VM, the first thing I'm actually going to see here, there we go, is this looks pretty much exactly like Server and Application Monitor. And that actually is because this VM is actually being monitored by Server and Application Monitor right now. But since it's also a virtual machine through Virtualization Manager, we'll add 2 tabs here on the left-hand side, one for Virtualization Summary and one for storage. Now with that, if I drill down to the Virtualization Summary, this will show me performance as the hypervisor sees it. So just like I saw on the other page, I can see my CPU, memory, network usage rate, plus I can see the utilization of this VM and its host side by side. So if there are any peaks and valleys in the graph, I can correlate that back to the host and see how that affects the host from here. And there and again, there's those action buttons again, so I can power cycle this VM, manage the snapshots, change CPU and memory resources, or migrate this VM to a different host or data store. Now, the cool part about these actions, these are baked into the alerts. So if I wanted to create an alert that said, if my VM's over 90% CPU for 2 hours or longer, go ahead and raise the number of CPU resources, I can do that. On the flip side of that, using the Orion alerting engine, I can also set resolution triggers. So I can actually make a condition that says once it goes back under 30% for 2 or 3 hours, put it back down where it was. I can do that too. It's really easy to set up. Now the other cool part about being in the Orion environment, for one, I can see the breadcrumbs of the vCenter, data center, cluster host. If I go back to the host up here, I can see the host performance information. I can also get hardware health information. But the cool part about it is these performance graphs. I can see the CPU, memory, and network usage of these VMs in a stacked graph. So I can quickly and easily see essentially who's taking all my cheese on my ESX host environment. On the flip side, if I go back a page, and I go to that storage tab that I mentioned was also going to be added, I can see, drum roll please, the IOPS and latency of this particular VM, as well as be able to see each one of the data stores it's associated to and the performance of this VM historically. But if I drill back into the data store, I can actually see the performance of this data store, IOPS, latency, as well as a chart that shows me this data store and its top VMs. So the dark blue line there, that will be the data store, but each line underneath it's one of my VMs, so I can see that the light blue line, that's the VM that's taking up all the I/O on this particular data store. So especially for the customers that are having saturation issues on their storage, which is one of the most common problems I hear in virtual environments today, you can quickly and easily pinpoint who's doing it. And the even cooler part about this is that, as Jared mentioned earlier, this integrates within our server and application monitor to show us, here's all the applications on this data store. So each one of the applications that the customer is monitoring through server and application monitor, they can see a roll-up of those applications on this data store and what VM it belongs to. So again, if you are having saturation issues, you can actually see not only who's done it, but what other applications are affected by it whenever this happens. Now, one more thing to point out too, because that actually about covers it for Virtualization Manager. And I did mention the integration with Server and Application Monitor, but there's one other product it integrates to as well, and that's our Storage Resource Monitor. And real quick, this piece is actually going to take a look at storage arrays in your environment. But the one thing I want to point out as I drill into a storage array is that these three products, Server and Application Monitor, Storage Resource Monitor, and Virtualization Manager, are part of what we like to call our AppStack suite of products. And what this will add is a chart like this over on the left-hand side that's going to be a contextualized view throughout the product to show you the relationships of what you're looking at and everything associated with it. So right now I'm looking at the storage array. I can see it's got 2 pools, 16 LUNs, but on the virtual side, it's connected to 2 data stores, 2 hosts, 14 virtual machines, and there's 19 applications. So if I am having an issue with the data store, I can actually drill into it either from here or really anywhere within the product and be able to get that same map view here on the left that shows me all the applications that belong to this particular data store. I can again see the top VM on this data store, and I can see exactly what LUN, what pool, and what array this is on. So if I look at the data store performance and I say, okay, well, this is my top VM, but I know it should be doing better than that. Well, now I can go back to the LUN of the storage array, see all the other LUNs in the same pool, and get that same kind of chart to show me who's my top talker, drill into that LUN, see what data store, and then figure out exactly which VM is actually causing my problem over there. All right. Well, that about covers it for the demo. If you guys do have any questions, please pull it over into that question and answer panel, and I'll turn it back over to Jared.
Actually, Matt, I was going to keep you on the line real quick. I have a couple questions that I think I know the answer, but I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. One of them was from, we use Orion to monitor all our MSP clients. Could we use the same with vMan if we point them to an added IP for different hypervisor resources?
Yep, absolutely. So one of the cool things about Virtualization Manager coming as a virtual appliance is we have this idea of what we call federated collectors. So think of it as like a server agent architecture where you have a collector out there that can collect everything locally and then send its information back to the main Virtualization Manager appliance. You can absolutely do that. So yeah, if you've got NATed IPs, basically that federated collector either takes care of it locally, or you can do it from an added IP off the main Virtualization Manager instance, and then point it back, pull all the information to a single instance and pull it. Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Another question we had was, I answered the basic one on who are our traditional competitors, but then another one came in with, due to traditional network performance monitoring companies, NetScout, Riverbed, CA, HP, do they have any, do we line up, does vMan compete against them in any traditional sense?
I would be willing to say no. If we do compete them from the virtualization perspective, we would stomp all over them. Just because, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, but the reasoning behind that is because companies like that, or even take our own network performance monitor, for example, it's more or less designed to get like the network information, switch information, and it sees virtualization information as a nice to have. So it'll get you some very basic information, but the deep dive metrics, the training and analysis, and the management of VMs, you're not going to see that with those products like you would with Virtualization Manager.
Okay. There was another question that basically I already answered it, but just doesn't it violate the basic principle of monitoring virtualization with a virtual appliance? Isn't that kind of counterproductive? But
you could see that, yes. And in the end, we are looking at the virtual center itself. So the virtual center does go down, but the rest of the virtual environment is still up. I mean, we could still alert you on that there's no collection. But that's actually part of the integration to Orion as well. In that when you do integrate it from Orion, there is a separate collection that happens on the Orion side that can ping back to the virtual environment and tell you that it's down. And Orion can be virtualized, but it could also be physical as well. So you do kind of have that last resort of, hey, I'm not alive whenever this happens.
Okay. We had another one come in. Is the licensing module a per core scenario?
Yeah, per physical CPU or per socket. So it should be similar to VMware's model as well.
Yeah, so you guys are getting a great bang for your buck when you're getting 12 core, 16 core, whatever they come out with now. Somebody asked to see if we can see a little bit more of the Hyper-V environment if possible.
Actually, as it turns out, this data store we're looking at actually is a CSV. So this is actually a Hyper-V environment that we're looking at right here. But the cool part of it is if I drill down into one of the virtual machines, it's going to look pretty similar to what we see on the VMware side as well. And the capacity planner that I showed you guys earlier, and even the sprawl pages, we're actually pretty littered with Hyper-V environments as well. So yeah, you'll notice it looks pretty similar. We do try to normalize the data throughout wherever we can. There we go. Yeah, this is one of my Hyper-V environments.
Well, that's loading. I'll jump in and answer another question. Was, you know, if what's the best practice to deploying in a VMware environment? Since it is an appliance, it's already pre-configured. It literally is hitting next a bunch of times. You know, import appliance, next, and then automatically you get dumped into the IP address, like the front end web address of the appliance, and you just go through the wizard right there. It's not, since it is all pre-configured, you're not having to do a lot of configuration. It's all kind of tweaked and tuned for you.
Yep, and another part to follow up on that too is that there is a Hyper-V virtual appliance available as well for the Hyper-V environments, but it's going to be a similar deployment where it's, you know, point at the VHD and pretty much done at that point. The great part of it is that both virtual appliances are heterogeneous. So if you wanted to, well, you will deploy one appliance to monitor both VMware and Hyper-V environments together. So you only need a single appliance at that point. It's just a matter of who do you want to deploy it on.
There was a question about functionality with Citrix.
So not as a hypervisor, no. We don't monitor it like we do anything else, like with VMware. We do have the ability to monitor the Citrix environment with Server and Application Monitor, but we're more or less making sure that Citrix is alive and humming. So not necessarily taking care of it like it's a hypervisor.
I know that there was a question that just came in on what kind of reports can be generated. I know you can do reports on both the appliance side and on the Orion side. I know the Orion side looks a lot nicer to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the great part about this integration too, is that, and sure enough, we're actually already on the virtualization reports. But for those customers who are already familiar with the SolarWinds environment today, it also integrates with the Orion reporting and alerting engine. So that same reporting alerting engine that they know and love today is the same one that they can use for Virtualization Manager, and they don't have to learn something new, even though it is a separate appliance. But like all SolarWinds products, if there's something that we don't have a report for out of the box, you can certainly go through, manage reports, and create your own, and just pull statistics out of the database. Or if you really want to get down and dirty and actually create your own SQL query, you're actually open to doing that as well.
There was a question that just came in about a certification exam. We don't.
In this year, something's coming, but we don't have today.
Yeah, stay tuned for some certification bits, but nothing right at the moment, unfortunately. All right, and I think that about takes care of it for the questions that are out there. Again, we'll hold on the line for just a little bit longer. But yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to put it in that Q&A portion.
Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining. I'll be following up with everyone via email. I'll be sending you a custom download link. You can send it to your customers if they'd like to evaluate the product, and it will be flagged to route to not only our channel team, but to you as the partner. So we'll make sure we get in touch with you about any opportunity you have. Make sure you reach out to resell@solarwinds.com. Also, I'll be sending out what we're calling the +1 sales kit. It's a set of cards. For those of you that provided your address, I'll send you those in the mail. The others, I'll send you a PDF. Also, our next webcast is going to be on Server and Application Monitor. That is February 19th. I'll send you a link if you'd like to join that. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining. Look forward to seeing you all year long. I'll also be announcing the winners of my 2015 training awards. There's some of you that were very faithful, and I would like to reward some of you with great prizes. So look for that email from me in the coming weeks. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.